much. Good morning. I'll now call the May 7th, 2025 San Diego County Board of Supervisors Land Use Meeting to order. Ryan, please call the roll for today's session.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. Supervisor Anderson. Present. Supervisor Montgomery-Stepp. Here. Supervisor Desmond. Here. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer.
Here. Okay, we will now turn to County Council for the report of actions taken in closed session yesterday.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning. The Board of Supervisors met in closed session on May 6, 2025 from 4:46 p.m. to 5:10 p.m. All 4 supervisors were present. The board took the following reportable action. On item 23B, Nicholas Ifantides versus County of San Diego, by a vote of 4-0, the board authorized County Council to appeal a decision by the Superior Court in an employment lawsuit filed by the county's former chief medical officer. That concludes the report.
Okay, thank you. We now proceed with non-agenda public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within our jurisdiction, but not an item on today's meeting agenda. The only action that the board may take is a referral to our CAO. Under the board's rules, speakers can speak once per meeting for non-agenda public comment. That's either yesterday or today, not both sessions. Speakers may select which. To better facilitate the meeting, for non-agenda public comment, we have 5 speakers in person, 5 speakers by phone. The rest of non-agenda public communication will be heard at the close of today's session. And in order to ensure timely completion of today's agenda, for any discussion items with 10 or more speakers, individuals will have 1 minute to share their opinion. According to Rule 4A, members of the public that are non-English speaking and need interpretation will get twice the allotted time. And as a final reminder, according to the board's rules of procedures, audience members shall not whistle, clap, stomp feet, or do anything to disrupt our proceedings. If you disrupt the meeting, you will be given 1 warning. After that 1 warning, if you disrupt the meeting again, you will be directed to leave the chamber for the remainder of the meeting. Ryan, please call the speakers.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 20 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 2 individuals in person, and 18 requesting to speak by phone. For those that have requested to speak by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll go ahead and begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. You'll then have 2 minutes to address the board. If you could please begin by stating your name for the audio record. And I'd like to invite forward the 2 individuals, Cesar Javier and Dorothea Flanagan.
Honorable Board of Supervisors, I'm Dorothea Flanagan of 3224 Gopher Canyon Road. My husband and I and my parents lived there for 45 years now. Of course, they're not living anymore, my parents. But I'm here because I have the rare opportunity to have you become heroes to 11 of us who live in an amphitheater like stadium walls going up 4 each. And the rumble strip was put there 13 years ago on the middle of the road. We've been suffering with that. We have a right to peace and quiet. We're patriots. And what was not anticipated by your road crew or your head of public works, whoever it is, I've contacted everybody, is that guys with big trucks will get on that rumble strip just so they can have the fun. They never get off of it until they hit a curve or somewhere to make the walls go vroom, vroom for their fun. The county is paving, resurfacing from I-15 on Gopher Canyon. They're 1/3 of the way finished to Disney Lane. All of our houses are grouped together, going up the mountainside on one side. We're asking that the rumble strip be paved in. This is a residential neighborhood. It's not I-15 or Route 5, and it does not slow down the traffic. The problem is they come down and increase speed, and they can't help it, and then they lose control. The speed limit's going to be reduced to 45 miles an hour now. We don't need the rumble. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Go ahead and begin your comments.
Political virus purifier. Cesar and Purita, we just had attended the city meeting. And Ma'am Steve, you were revered by Councilor Foss, Councilor Rivera, Councilor Morena. You are a fighter for equity. Wrong. The solution is not this. Cesar, Purita, don't tell this to anyone. This is only for you. Corruption. Ma'am Step. Step down. That's the solution. Ma'am Remer, this is the solution. Manufacturing industrial activities perpetrated by Air Pollution Control District. It's not a war-fighting machine to reduce or even stop air pollution. It is a business. Look at the organizational chart. The head of the agency is in charge, Madam Forbes, in charge of permit. And the chair governing body, Sue, before, now taken over again by Marcus Bush. Look at the video, how they perform the thinking stint. They are protecting the businesses, 50,000 jobs according to the lobbyist. But who among those businesses follow the book? Doing business safely without impacting health and safety to their neighbors. Ma'am, step, equity, fighter. Wrong. Step down. There are many ways to determine what's the meaning of a step down. A step down in your greed. A step down in your personal agenda, Ma'am Remer. You are their commission board. You were seated there many times. And the mayor of City of San Diego aspiring to be another
Sir.
county supervisor. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We'll hear from Purita.
Body language.
It's your turn.
50-year-old.
Sir,
you're done.
You're out of time.
Thank you, Ma'am Remer.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next speaker, Purita.
Step down.
Does Purita want to speak?
Oh. May I request that she cede her time?
No, that's against the board rules. She can't concede her time. She can speak, or we're going to move to the phone callers.
Okay, let's go. I will have to assist her because she is now a victim of Alzheimer's dementia.
But you cannot speak for her. She needs
Yes,
to do the
she will
speaking.
speak
Thank
now.
you.
Say your name and good morning.
Good morning. Rule 11. Exceptions from Rule 10 permit requirements. Mobile sources, page 6. Combustion and heat transfer equipment, page 7. Number 3, structures and structural modifications, page 8. Number 4, laboratory equipment and relative operations, page 8. Replacement of equipment, page 9. Plant support equipment, page 10. Metallurgical processing equipment in general, 11. And is that it? We, the residents of Choyas Parkway, Leia, Streamview, Salta, Boys, Mina, Limona, 51st Streets, West Bank of Choyas Creek of District 9, certify and report that a home business at 5238 Streamview
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. Again, with accordance the board's rules, we will be hearing from the first 5 callers. The remaining callers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments. We'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
Hi, good morning. My name is Madison, and I'm a public health advocate here in San Diego County. I'm speaking today to express concern about the county's proposed social equity cannabis program. Not because I oppose equity, but because I care deeply about the health and safety of our most vulnerable communities. This program, as currently designed, would place commercial cannabis operations in unincorporated and often underserved rural areas with limited infrastructure, fewer enforcement resources, and in many cases, strong community opposition. The county's own environmental impact report outlines risks to air quality, traffic safety, and youth exposure. As a public health professional, I find it deeply troubling that these risks are being accepted without more rigorous mitigation. We should not conflate promoting social equity with expanding access to a substance that carries real and well-documented health risks, especially for youth and those with mental health vulnerabilities. True equity means investing in these communities through education, healthcare access, and economic opportunity, not through commercial cannabis. I urge you to slow down and reconsider. Let's develop equity strategies that lift communities up without introducing new health burdens. Please listen to the local voices calling for caution and ensure that this program prioritizes long-term well-being over short-term revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Penny Abram, non-agenda items.
You may proceed.
Good morning. Yes, I'm back, and I'm asking myself, why am I back again? After more than a year of asking again and again and again, coming back again and again, asking for the same thing. A position that we have assigned by voting certain people who are supposed to be taking care of issues such as abuse of animals, which is equivalent to an abuse of a child. If there was an issue of children being abused, mistreated for a year, and dying, we will not be sitting here and talking about this again, once again and again and again. Another horse died. Another horse died in the hands in the horrific Artesian Road. Somehow, this woman has a hold on this people that are supposed to be in position to take these horses out immediately, dogs and horses that are mistreated, that are eating from their feces, that are starved, that are emaciated, that are suffering. In addition to this, animal control situation here is out of control, really. It's not in control at all. Dogs are suffering and dying, languishing again the same way. These animal control people are really are not in charge of anything but just making pretend, like putting a Band-Aid on an enormous gush that is bleeding and pussing, and yet a tiny little Band-Aid is put, and the board to be satisfied saying everything is all right. Oh no, everything is good. They looked from a distance, or they went there and looked away from what's happening.
Time is up. Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Yes, good morning. My name is Michael Fujimori. I'm calling to speak about the current conditions for the animals under the leadership of the San Diego County Animal Services. Not only are the animals at the shelters being neglected, as dogs get walked only once a week, but another horse has recently died at the Artesian Road property, and the conditions there have not improved as horses and dogs continue to suffer there with no action taken against the property owners. As we have stated again and again, the animals there need to be taken out, and the horses need to be placed in sanctuaries for their own safety and well-being. And we've come to you time after time and urged this board of supervisors, specifically Tara Lawson-Remer, whose district includes the Artesian Road property, to take action to protect animals. And we're still waiting. Today we're asking for the removal of Bon, Maurice, and Rachel Borelli from their positions and to bring back former director Dan D'Souza, who we know will do his job and protect the animals that you have all been entrusted to do so, but have failed. And please don't forget that voters will remember who was on the right side for animals, and most importantly, who wasn't. So all we're asking is for you to do the job that we elected you to do, which is to protect animals and to go after animal abusers. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning. My name is Kate Ione. I am a voting constituent of Tara Lawson-Remer. I'm here again also for over a year, crying and pleading with you guys to do something for these horses in Artesian Road. You've seen the pictures, you've seen the videos, you've seen so many horrible things, and we've seen even more than you have, and yet nothing has happened. I mean, these animals are in Tara's district, and she's been allowing this to happen, and we've just been coming back to you, and it just doesn't make sense when you say, and she has said that you guys do care about animal welfare, but it doesn't seem like it. And like the other lady and gentleman said, another horse died in March, the end of March, and these guys are just suffering. Imagine if this was your own dog or cat or child suffering and starving and being dirty and sick and not even getting love on top of all that. I just wish and pray that you guys would actually care and take this serious for a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Carrie Honowitz for the animals on Artesian Road. Can you hear me?
Yes, you may proceed with your comments.
Okay. Board of Supervisors, the dogs are starved for exercise, socialization, attention, toys, and treats. Why does the County Board of Supervisors treat animals this way? It is outrageous that animals continue to be on the chopping block of deprivation, cruelty, and neglect. When will your words align with your actions? So after I provide my public comment, okay. Either Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer, Andrew Strong, Vaughn Morris, or Rachel Borelli will say things are fine, but it's all a lie. This happens every meeting. Where is the evidence? Like the other gal stated, another horse has died on Artesian Road, which means horses continue to die or horrifying deaths on this ranch. It has now been 36 days and the horses are still there languishing. Why are you all so scared of Deborah Barkley? Which county official is going to be criminally charged for allowing ongoing violations of California law on this ranch? You have known about this for a year now, yet the horses still remain. Enough is enough. San Diego County has the largest population of horse owners than any other municipality in the entire nation. Animals should be
Thank you. Your time is up. And for the remaining callers that requested to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, please hang up and call back at the conclusion of today's session. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
Okay, great.
Chairman, briefly, could I ask DPW and/or Traffic Commission to look into the issue the woman brought up on Gopher Canyon Road and get with her? Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. So we now proceed with the continued items from the Tuesday legislative session, which includes items 19, 21, and Fire Protection District 1, beginning with item 19, and I hand it over to county staff for a presentation.
Good morning, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and Supervisors. Today, our team is pleased to introduce an ordinance amending the county regulatory code related to unauthorized camping and protection of open space and public works infrastructure. On March 11, we provided options and received your direction on various components to address unsafe camping, to mitigate fire risk and safeguard public health and safety. This included a request to collaborate with partner organizations with lived experience expertise, specifically the Homeless Experienced Advocacy and Leadership Network, known as HEAL. Addressing homelessness is a complex challenge that includes a threaded effort from all 4 of the county business groups. Today, I'm joined by team members from Health and Human Services, Land Use and Environment, and Public Safety to provide an overview of our service operations and enhancements to the ordinance. Before I kick it to the team, I do want to mention that there is a separate but related effort being led by the Public Safety Group, based on your board's direction, to identify high fire risk areas and prioritize these areas for encampment removal. That item will return to the board at your next meeting on May 20. Now I will turn it over to the team for our presentation on the ordinance enhancements, beginning with Deanna Beck, Director of Homeless Solutions.
Thank you, Brian. Through ongoing community engagement efforts, county solicits feedback on county programs, initiatives, and efforts from key stakeholders, partners, community members, and people with lived experience on homelessness. Specific to this effort, county staff engaged with the local Homeless Experienced Advocacy and Leadership, or HEAL network, to incorporate the voice of lived experience. Input received acknowledged the need for update to the fire safety measure in the ordinance. Additionally, it was noted by HEAL Network that this ordinance should not perpetuate the cycle of displacement of individuals experiencing homelessness throughout the region without providing housing options. It was shared based on their lived experience. Encampment displacement often exacerbates behavioral health challenges and uproots individuals from existing supports and networks. It was also shared that without prior planning and communication, displacement may lead to increased stress, loss of belongings, potential criminalization, and diminished trust in local authorities. Input included a recommendation from HEAL Network on allowing up to 72 hours of notice to vacate wherever possible and when urgent circumstances don't exist. It was shared that longer period of notice allows individuals to secure and arrange transportation for belongings, notify employers or service providers of their location change, and make accommodations for pets. I will now turn it over to Jason Hemmons, Director of Parks and Recreation Department, to discuss Enhancement A of the ordinance.
Thank you, Deanna. Enhancement A includes provisions that address fire activity on county property. The restrictions in this ordinance would apply to county parks, any public street or highway, or any improved or unimproved property owned, leased, or managed by the county. Individuals would be prohibited from using an ignition source to cause or intend to cause a fire, maintain an existing fire, camp while using an ignition source, and discard any lighted tobacco product or any burning or combustible material. I'll now turn the presentation over to Marissa Berry, Director of Public Works, to further discuss the additional protections for open spaces and public works infrastructure.
Thank you, Jason. Enhancement B includes provisions that address additional protections for open spaces and public works infrastructure. The restrictions in this ordinance would apply to property managed by the county to existing areas where camping or maintaining an encampment is prohibited. Prohibit storing personal belongings or waste. Prohibit activities that alter the property, including but not limited to digging, removing vegetation, and building structures that damages, impairs, or interferes with the function of the property or causes a threat to public health or safety. During an emergency, construction, or maintenance, it shall be unlawful for any person to remain within the portion of county-maintained public works infrastructure or property identified by the Director, Department of Public Works, as closed to the public by signage, barriers, or other features. I'll now turn the presentation over to Andrew Strong from Public Services Group to speak about provisions of enforcement.
And thank you, Marissa. As directed, staff incorporated an additional enhancement related to the provision of enforcement. The provision states that law enforcement may only issue a citation to enforce a violation of the ordinance when an individual refuses available shelter and there is sufficient shelter for all unhoused individuals living in the unincorporated area. Available shelter is defined as shelter that is reasonably available and accessible to the individual. This requirement does not apply to individuals who are excluded from shelter housing programs, including those with felony warrants, arsonists, sex offenders, and those who have previously been removed from a program for qualifying offense. This provision does, however, present significant operational challenges, potentially limiting the practical application of the ordinance. For example, unhoused populations and available shelter beds fluctuate daily. Our regional homeless assistance program typically operates near capacity, and availability varies day to day. Even when beds are available, they may not meet an individual's needs or their required special accommodations. As a result, the ordinance's enforceability will depend on real-time resource availability. That being said, a citation can be issued if the violation poses an imminent risk of harm to public health or safety. There are alternative avenues that may be utilized to achieve similar outcomes from an enforcement perspective, including provisions within the California Penal Code that address trespassing, loitering, illegal lodging, and related activities. A resource-first approach will continue to be prioritized, connecting unhoused individuals with appropriate and available services. If adopted, sheriff deputies will be briefed on the ordinance, and it will serve as an additional tool to support enforcement efforts. As directed by your board, staff will be returning on May 20th to share details on existing policies and practices regarding homeless encampment abatement and recommendations to improve abatement processes, especially in high fire risk areas. I'll now turn the presentation back to Brian.
Thanks, Andrew and team, for the presentation. If the board approves today's introduction of the ordinance, subject to any changes that you direct, we will return for adoption on May 20, and it would take effect 30 days later. This concludes our presentation, and the team is available to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Do any of my colleagues have any questions before we go to public comment? Go ahead.
I have a couple. Could you put that slide 6 back up? I'll talk to the first bullet later, but I guess I'm confused on bullet 3. The requirement does not include individuals who are ineligible for shelter due to criminal convictions or past behavior. Does that mean law enforcement officers can't issue a criminal citation to someone who's ineligible for shelter due to their criminal convictions or past behavior? I don't understand that one.
The Sheriff's Department still has the authority to issue a citation under other provisions like the Penal Code. So this ordinance in particular, the language is restrictive to whether there is the availability of shelter for all unhoused.
I got that one.
Right.
I'm going to talk about that one later.
Right.
This one, you're saying, so if somebody is ineligible for shelter because of their past behavior, we can't do anything about that person living on county land or in any of these other prohibited areas.
If the Sheriff's Department deems that there's an imminent risk, or a law enforcement officer deems there's an imminent risk, they still can issue that citation to that individual. But as far as
I get that if there's an imminent risk, that's like to public safety. But for the individual, I guess there's not an imminent risk. But this person, I guess, due to their criminal convictions or past behavior, they don't qualify for being in shelter. We just leave that person there?
Supervisor Desmond, if I may, and Andrew, please add on to this if there's more to it, but it's my understanding that if someone is trespassing, which would be a crime, the individual generally would not be booked into jail if they're compliant otherwise, if that speaks to the question that you're seeing.
I guess the question is if they're what do we do with them if they're ineligible for shelter due to past criminal convictions or behavior, but they're in an encampment that meets the other qualifications where it's county land or county parks or something like that. What do? We just don't do anything with that individual?
I do see county council. We can talk a little bit with the county council.
Morning, Supervisor. I would say that trespassing, illegal lodging, and loitering, we would use those to arrest somebody that is not eligible to be arrested under this section. So it's not that nothing would be done. It would be that they would just be arrested for a code, not a county code, a penal code.
Okay, so that person would be arrested, but they wouldn't, okay. It wouldn't be given a criminal citation under this code, but they could be arrested for other things. Okay. All right, I just kind of wasn't clear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll get to bullet one later. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Claudia, please.
Thank you. So for clarification, I think the question related to subdivision B related to when a person is ineligible for other shelter space, what could happen? The shelter requirement in subdivision B of this section puts in certain requirements must be met before a citation can be made. If the element of available sheltering is not available because of the past behavior or past ineligibility for shelters, that requirement itself does not need to be met before the citation can be issued as written. And I'll look over to the lawyers who wrote the provisions in response to confirm. I see their heads shaking.
Supervisor Anderson.
Well, look, I think that staff did an incredible job of walking that tight line, balancing. We don't want to penalize people for being poor, but on the same token, we don't want to allow people to burn down neighborhoods or put their own lives at risk. Yesterday, this was passed out to everybody, but the Fire Chiefs Association, I met with every fire chief in the county. They're all on board with this moving forward. They understand that over 1,100 fires in the city of San Diego were caused, like the Rancho Bernardo fire, by a homeless encampment. And while it was, we had evacuations in Rancho Bernardo, and it was dangerous, it was nowhere close to the danger we're facing if we're in open space in the backcountry where we have 6-foot-high grass, or we have other highly flammable materials that could quickly lead out of control. With that, I'd like to make a motion in support of this, and I want to thank staff again. This was a difficult task for you to eye the needle, and yet you found a way to do it. Thank you.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the work. I have I have some comments after public comment, but my question is based on our May 20th meeting and what we will be discussing there. How come those two efforts weren't merged, or what is the purpose of separating those two efforts?
And I'll address that a little bit. One of the main reasons was we needed a little bit more research on the high fire risk part to make sure that we were taking into account what we could legally do within the ordinance. So we needed a little bit more time to make sure we came back with the appropriate response.
Okay. I'll have a lot more to say after public comment.
Okay, great. Please go ahead, call public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 7 total requests to speak, 1 individual in person, 6 requesting to speak by phone. Also like to note for the record, we did receive 2 e-comments on this item. 1 was in opposition and 1 was neutral. For any individual that requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using those instructions that were provided to you. We'll go ahead and begin with the in-person speaker. I'd like to invite forward Oliver Twist. You have 2 minutes to address the board.
Hi, good morning. Mary Davis Oliver Twist here, and I'm bringing a friend. She's learning, and this is her first time to Chambers, so please welcome her. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. It's so critical, such a critical risk. I've said repeatedly that I've had 2 friends that have lost houses to fire. Now we have this data-driven approach, and we've learned that many of these fires are being set by transients and encampment. I personally believe allowing people to live in squalor is not humane or compassionate and shouldn't be allowed at all. But now you want to compound it by threatening the risk of people's homes. So it's your job to be the line to stop and to hold public safety to the first and foremost. And I would also go back to the flood control channel. If we go back to the historic flooding in January of last year or the year before, the woman died. Do you think letting her live in a flood channel was compassionate? When that heavy rain came, she died. So this is akin to that. There will be a human capacity collateral damage from this. Please look out for the majority of San Diegans and enforce this ordinance and put it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted, and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
Hi, Paul Bold. I agree with everything Mary just said. The ordinance, the proposed ordinance looks good except for one minor detail. I would remove subsection B6. Activities that alter the property, including but not limited to digging, removing vegetation, and building structures in a manner that damages, impairs, or interferes with the function of the property or creates a threat to public health or safety. It could criminalize or traumatize kids, minors, or visitors who are just playing around like kids do, or digging small holes, and it's really too subject to interpretation. So I would suggest specifying something like this does not apply to children under 12. The study has enough problems without inflicting unnecessary stress, tension, and trauma. I guess the legal office was too busy fighting cases that are still unresolved to pay attention to this small detail. But this is really a bad subsection. The rest of it is fine. Again. Glad you settled one of the cases, by the way. 199 to go, is it? Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Hey, Gonzalo here. So, really.
You can begin your comments, Consuelo. Consuelo, you may have muted yourself. And Vice Chair, not seeing any movement from that speaker and not having any other speakers dialed in, that would conclude public comment for this item.
Okay, great. So we have a motion on the floor by Supervisor Anderson, and I know Supervisor Montgomery Stepp said she was going to have some comments. So I'll just begin with you.
Yeah, thank you again for bringing this forward, and I'll try to get right to the point. The only issue that I have is with Section 4. It was Supervisor Desmond asked a couple of questions. I think I had some of those same questions. So here's my, and this is kind of, I'll walk you through my thought process around it. So the last sentence in, by the way, thank you for talking to folks with lived experience as well, and just want to acknowledge that they also acknowledge that the fire issues they certainly could understand the importance of something like this because of those issues and don't want to put anyone in danger. But the subsection B says, the last sentence says the requirement of this section does not apply to individuals who are ineligible for shelter due to criminal convictions or past behavior. Here's my concern with this, that it ultimately what it does is it creates a permanent subclass of unhoused people who will never have a place to go and never escape the system. In particular, the phrase past behavior is concerning to me. But even, when folks get arrested, they're brought to jail, they're charged with, either trespassing or loitering or unauthorized camping, fined up to $1,000 or sentenced to 6 months in jail. They go to jail for 6 months, they come out, now they have the criminal conviction. It's really a horrible cycle long-term that I have very real concerns about. But the past behavior phrase in particular, a couple of years ago, there was a few studies done that showed that shelters actually, as of that point, never had a real system as to how they determined why someone was kicked out of a shelter. The majority of people that were kicked out, there was no data as to why they were kicked out, when they were kicked out. Was it a year ago? Was it 6 months ago? Was it 10 years ago? We don't know, and we still haven't set up a universal kind of system to understand what past behavior would mean. So that means we're depending on people within the shelter that may or may not have a certain direction as to why somebody should be kicked out, and then placing it in this ordinance and basing a decision as to whether or not someone gets shelter off of that. I won't be supporting that piece of it. So I would just ask, for a couple of amendments, Supervisor Anderson. I know that you made a motion. I just want a little bit more clarity and a definition into the ordinance. So I would just say that my preference is to, if we keep criminal convictions in there, to completely remove the phrase past behavior. There's absolutely no definition to it, and I don't know that we would be able to define it at this point because there is still no universal definition of what that means to shelters. So that would essentially read the requirement of this section does not apply to individuals who are ineligible for shelter due to criminal convictions. And then I also would propose in subsection C to actually define what the risk of harm to public health or public safety is, and request that that subsection read as follows, that law enforcement officers may issue a criminal citation to enforce a violation of section 73.108, regardless of the availability of shelter where the violation poses an imminent risk of death, serious injury, or spread of wildfire or hazardous communicable disease. So those would be the two amendments that I would like to offer up, because I think that it's important that if we're creating policy, then we're not unintentionally creating a subclass of folks that we say we want them to get help and do better, but the cycle just will not allow for it off of ambiguous terms. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Go ahead. Could we put up the ordinance again, please?
I have the amendment language too.
Okay, great.
If that's
Yeah. Which would you prefer, the amendment language or the ordinance?
Well, I'd like to see the amendment language so I can fully understand it.
Great.
And then the first amendment was pretty straightforward. The second amendment, I wanted to know how is that different than what staff suggested. I wanted to make sure, because I work really hard to lower homelessness in my district. I don't want to see anybody homeless. On the same token, to me, this is my focus on this.
Your mic, Supervisor. We want to hear you.
Usually they're turning it off. This is a delightful change.
We can hear you, but the public can't.
Yeah.
Well, the public prefers that. My first concern, and I think that you address it in the latter, but I want to make sure that in that latter, I'd like to know what staff thinks in terms of what's the difference of what they're suggesting, whether yours is just cleaner language or how does it impact? Because right now we had rain, everything's green, it's beautiful. 3 weeks from now, we're going to be in fire season.
And it's in there, but I'll have, per your request, and it's okay, staff goes, and then I'd like to just explain my thought process.
Oh, sure.
Supervisor, are you asking specifically with respect to the interpretation of language added on paragraph C? That's
yes.
Proposed death, serious injury, spread of wildfire, or hazardous communicable diseases. I would defer to public safety if there's anything else that would have been considered an imminent risk of harm that's not included in those words.
So what additional harm would there be that hasn't been stated in the amendment? I mean, I can't imagine anything more than what Supervisor Montgomery Stepp has added, except for she's been more specific and not as generic. But what are we missing?
Right, I think it's hard to answer, or Supervisor, through the chair, I think it's hard to answer that question due to the nature of needing to have a broad definition so law enforcement can come on the scene and make that determination. But this is definitely, like you said, more specific for health and safety. And I would defer to the Sheriff's Department if they would like to come up and give a little bit more practical application examples of what that could look like in the field and why we might want to have a broader definition here.
So we had meetings with County Council about this, and we chose to leave the language as imminent risk because if we put some kind of specific number of, with 10 feet from a flame, from, vegetation, then people would just move 11 feet. Or, every property is different. Sometimes, if you're camping behind a Walmart and it's fully concrete, having a fire there is not the same as having a fire in the river bottom with lots of flammable material. So we needed the flexibility to be able to do a case-by-case, determination on each encampment that we encounter.
If I may follow up, that's not being so specific when it says hazardous disease, but the spread of wildfire. It still gives you that flexibility. I was thinking there might be something in addition to that we're missing, but I think I lean in the direction of accepting the amendments because I think that having the definitions don't hurt the enforcement. And that's, based on what you said, it's not, I don't see that as hurting the enforcement. Serious injury, all these other things, it's pretty comprehensive. I just wondered if there was something that I'm not anticipating that you're seeing out in the fields.
No, we've had so many meetings about this, and imminent risk of spread of wildfire, I feel like addresses most of the concerns that have been brought up.
Okay. I'm happy to take the amendments.
Okay, appreciate it. I just wanted to, just clarify it a bit.
Thank you.
Don't want to tie
Thank you,
hands,
Deputy.
but don't want it to be so broad that it could be kind of used out of context. So we came up with these things, but thank you very much. And I will second.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor by Supervisor Anderson, second by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. Supervisor Desmond, did you have a couple comments?
Yes, and another potential amendment. I want to know, I'm very supportive of all the additional measures for fire protection. I also represent a big portion of the unincorporated area, and we absolutely do not want fires coming out of starting anywhere. However, the way this is written, due to the provision that there has to be, well, I guess in B above, if you want to put that back up on the screen there, the previous slide that you just had up, under enforcement, section B, well, that's fine there. That's actually what the crux of it. Except as provided by the subdivision, law enforcement officers may only issue a criminal citation to enforce a violation of section 73-108, which includes the fire, the ignition source, not digging, and all these other things. They can only enforce with a citation to an individual when that individual refuses available shelter and there's sufficient shelter for all unhoused individuals living in the unincorporated area. So even if we have a shelter available for the person that we're trying to move or trying to get into a shelter, if that person refuses, we cannot issue a citation unless we have shelter beds for all unhoused people within the county, which to me just makes this thing unenforceable, because that means we have to have a shelter bed available for everyone to enforce this action on anyone. And it's impractical, really, to have a shelter bed for everyone in the county that's unhoused, because shelters are transitional. They're temporary. They're not like permanent housing. We shouldn't really build shelters for every person. But this states, in order to enforce any provision of 73-108, that person refuses shelter, we cannot enforce it unless we have, first of all, shelter for all unhoused individuals, which was the first bulleted previously. And that's the first line in that section B. And the sheriff's department gave a little sheet here of how they would potentially enforce this. Their comment was, because there's no centralized or real-time system tracking available shelter beds, each locality funds and operates shelters independently. This threshold of having a bed for everyone is going to be difficult to satisfy in practice. So I think we should have a shelter bed for that person that we're trying to enforce it on. Absolutely. Okay, that makes sense. But to say we have to have, before we can enforce it on anybody, we have to have a shelter bed for everybody does not make sense to me. So I would like to propose an amendment. I don't know if you have it, Andrew, if you could put it up there, what I had, not Andrew, Ryan.
No problem, of course.
Andrew's favorite brother. Oh, you don't have it? I thought he already gave it to you. I got it. So change this, law enforcement officers may only issue a criminal citation to enforce a violation of the statute to an individual when that individual refuses shelter and there's sufficient shelter for that unhoused person living in the unincorporated area. So to me, it's almost unenforceable if we have to have a shelter bed for everyone before we can enforce it on anyone, is the way this reads. And so I'd like to see this, say we have to have a shelter bed for that person that we're trying to enforce it on. Makes total sense, which is basically back to the Boise decision. But by requiring that shelter beds for all unhoused, and strike the all unhoused individuals before enforcement can be made. That would be, I think, much more reasonable, more workable, because otherwise we're never going to be able to enforce these items. So I'd like to offer that amendment, I guess, as well. I like the amendments that Supervisor Montgomery Stepp put forward, and I think this just makes more sense that we have a shelter bed available for the person or persons that we are trying to enforce the encampment ordinance at that time.
I'm fine with taking that. Is that how staff interpreted the original, that we would have to have shelter for everybody, not just the person starting the fires?
Supervisor, yes, that is how we interpreted the direction of the martial law.
Well, then that clearly doesn't work at all, and it's absolutely useless. So I take that amendment. I don't know if the second does, but I absolutely do. You know, this is about stopping fires. And look, I want to be high-minded. I look at life not as perfect, but better or worse. If we can't enforce it, you're putting us all at risk in ways that people are going to lose their lives. It makes absolutely no sense bringing something forward that has a hidden poison pill in it. And I want to thank Supervisor Desmond for discovering that poison pill. But the goal is to protect these folks from killing themselves and killing all my neighbors. And so I gladly take that.
I just have some questions. Why remove the reference to the point in time count? I mean,
Because that was what was being used to determine that we had shelter for all unhoused people.
what are our numbers for unincorporated point in time count as far as the number of folks who are unhoused, well, homeless by the HUD definition, I guess, all encompassing in the shelter we have?
Thank you. Through the Vice Chair. Supervisor, the point in time count, the latest one we have is 2024. The new results are coming soon. But based on that last one, we had about 200 unhoused folks in the unincorporated area. That number is pretty consistent for the past couple of years before that.
And then how much availability do we have on, not filled shelter beds, but just across our system in unincorporated?
So our current resources include our regional homeless assistance program, and as Andrew mentioned, it is generally operating near capacity, has a capacity for up to 250 households. On any given week, we looked at about last 4 weeks, we are able to enter about 4 households on average per week. So the capacity does vary daily, and it's based on entries and exits from the program.
Okay, so I'm just trying to think through, because it sounds like right now, the way that this is currently written, that we would be able to enforce. Because in the unincorporated area, we have as much availability as folks. It said we counted about 250, able to at least shelter about 250 households, and in the unincorporated area from the point in time count, what was just stated is that we have about 200 people. That's what was stated. So is that?
Well, but we don't know how many people are still unhoused, out there. We don't really have that accurate number.
Right, I'm just saying the point, what I'm trying to get to is based on the current construction of it, the way that it reads is that we're not using an arbitrary sort of, I saw, 5 people on the street when I walked outside, right? We're not using that type of data to determine this. We're using the point in time count, which may not, be accurate on a day-to-day basis, but it still shows that as a county and our responsibility as the municipality to the unincorporated area, we are basically fulfilling our responsibilities in order to enforce as written. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So then what if, I'm not saying, I just feel like the point in time count should be referenced in some kind of way, because I want to have a data point to turn to, but at the same time, I'm trying to think through if we are approaching someone or people and we have availability for them, then, maybe it doesn't change the outcome which we're trying to get to. All we're saying is we want people to have the opportunity to be housed before something else happens, citation or otherwise, arrest or otherwise.
Well, what if we left the first paragraph, or what if we left the second paragraph and just changed the first paragraph up there?
Sufficient shelter for honest shall be calculated. Yeah, I think, it wouldn't have the same effect, but I think I would want to keep it in there so that we at least can point to having an idea of, how we're enforcing. So I think that I am okay with that. I'm okay with the first paragraph. But is there a way that I can see it all together?
Yeah, I was going to say, I can bring up your amendment. I only can share one screen at a time, but I can bring your amendment here, and then we can work on adding in and striking the sentence. So And then just one clarification, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, I was made aware that you possibly you wanted this struck, or is this staying, that section?
Let's just keep it since we already voted on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're just taking the bottom portion of Supervisor Desmond's amendment. So then we're striking the sentence "sufficient shelter." Is that in?
We want the first paragraph of what was shown.
Oh, okay. So we're taking.
Change that first paragraph, but leave in the second one. Don't strike that sufficient shelter.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
So
let me just see the way it.
Sorry. Okay. So this is in subsection B, is my understanding.
Yes. It's the first sentence.
Right here. Okay. So we are changing. So we're taking this unincorporated area.
And I misspoke. We haven't voted on it, but we have, currently there's a motion and a second on that language.
So I'm assuming it's this whole first sentence that we are replacing with your first one, Supervisor Desmond. So delete this. And then we're adding in. Oh gosh, that didn't work very well. Sorry, live typing. I don't know if it's going to actually work with this, unfortunately.
Are you having trouble with doing the live type? Is that the issue?
Sure am, yeah.
I just put that, I don't know. I think we
It should work.
The formatting is very wonky between the two, but what I can do here, let's see.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, you'd like to see the whole ordinance altogether? Is that
The whole section B, but even just looking at it now, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to include the second part without the first part.
You mean, okay, so you want to see Supervisor Desmond's incorporated into the whole?
I wanted to see the first part of his amendment incorporated with what my suggestion would be the second part not incorporated, so I can see how it reads.
Brian, we can wait. I think that we can wait. Go ahead and just try to do it. And it's okay if the formatting's weird. I think we can all read.
Let me.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Perhaps we can move on to another board item and come back to it and give time to put this together so we're not all sitting around.
Ryan, is that procedurally possible? Or we have to take a...
Yeah, I mean, you really want to finish the item that you're on. You don't necessarily want to move forward.
How about this? We will...
We can't table it?
You can.
We will take a 3-minute recess.
Perfect.
So that Ryan's not sitting here feeling like we're all staring at him while you're doing this item. Thank you. Okay, well, back in session. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, so we were considering this motion. So to remind everyone where we were at, we had a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a motion by Supervisor Anderson, second by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, and now Supervisor Desmond has an amendment that he's proposing. And previously, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp had an amendment that Supervisor Anderson had taken. So we're now looking at the motion that's on the floor. That is Supervisor Anderson's original motion, including Supervisor Montgomery Stepp's amendment, and now also potentially including Supervisor Desmond's amendment.
Well, I mean, we can vote, but I just, because we're having this discussion basically again in 2 weeks, I need a little bit more time, me personally, to figure out what the impact of what we're actually doing, because I do think that this changes quite a bit about what's before us. So I'll just say that, and I know we're going to vote.
Well, there is a possibility, a question, I suppose, to Ryan. We are considering a similar item in 2 weeks. Could we vote to consider this in 2 weeks instead when we look at the other item that you're bringing, so we're able to see everything holistically?
Yeah, you can continue the item to a date certain if you'd like.
Well, I would, let me just say this. Because I'm a second on this currently and I'm not totally sure about the new amendments, I'll just go ahead and withdraw my second so someone else can do that.
I'll second. For moving forward.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
We're putting all this work in. I did over 30,000 votes and bills. None of them are perfect. And they get changed and amended and fixed. 6 months from now, 2 weeks from now, if it's not working, we revisit it and tweak it so that it does work. But things change and we put our best foot forward. I'm happy to move forward with this, knowing that the power of this board can change things in the future to make them better. But if we wait for perfect, my neighbors are going to burn down, potentially. I don't want to be in LA. I don't want to see another Cedar Fire, a Paradise Fire, Woods Creek Fire, and know that we could have prevented it had we moved quickly. And if it doesn't work, I'm happy to revisit it, because at the end of the day, it's about better versus worse. It's not about perfect, because we never will achieve perfect.
I'd like another moment. I'm reading. So this highlighted, is that being deleted, or what is the highlight?
That's for consideration. I don't.
The original amendment was to remove that highlighted language altogether. I just wanted to see what it looked like without it being removed, just because sort of one phrase was contingent upon the other phrase.
Yeah, so we can strike it if you'd like.
So is that your motion, Supervisor Desmond?
But it doesn't, I can go either way. I think the first sentence is more important, that we have to show to that person we're trying to.
Thank you all for your patience. I'm reading it a third time. Okay, I think I understand what's happening. So let me just say, I understand the purpose of the amendment. I think what I'm concerned about does this create an incentive for law enforcement to potentially or people, us to leave beds open so that then we could say, hey, there is a bed available? I mean, I'm just playing this out, right? I'm saying does this create incentive for us to leave beds open so that then there is a bed available for that unhoused person, even though other people came to utilize that shelter bed and were turned away in order to leave the bed open so that law enforcement had a bed available so that they could say that there's a bed available for this specific unhoused person. Ebony looks puzzled. Am I making sense? Somebody tell me.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. This is why this shouldn't be about homelessness. It should be about fire safety. We're losing the point. We're trying to solve homelessness by putting our lives in jeopardy, in their lives in jeopardy. This really isn't about homelessness. This is about fire safety. And so you're hit it right on the head. And when we move forward, I'm going to insist that we have beds open so this is enforceable, and we're going to lose opportunity to help others who want the help. But we're going to do that because we keep putting homeless before arson. And I think it's nuts. And I think that if you lived in my neighborhood or in the rural portions of my district, you'd realize how silly this is. But look, I'm in the business of better versus worse, not perfect. So I'm willing to accept all this stuff to move forward because something's better than nothing. But you're right. We're talking about potentially taking money that I had for a shelter and giving it to District 4 to help with that shelter. But I'm going to say I want $1 million put aside to make sure that there's not a day that goes by there isn't a bed available so we can enforce this, because my neighbors don't deserve having their lives put in jeopardy. So you can pay me now or you can pay me later, but you don't have a right to burn my house down.
I think you said something useful yesterday about us not yelling at each other and us finding a path forward. So can we please?
Did I yell?
I'm just identifying that did not feel very collaborative. So I think we're trying to find a path forward here on an item that is important to you. So if it would be helpful if you could be constructive and not yell at each other. So, okay, I am going to read this again.
Procedural question. I have just a quick procedural question. What's coming back on May 20th?
Supervisor, through the chair, what's coming back on May 20th is the action that was directed to us, I believe in February, to come back specifically to address high fire risk around abatement and abatement actions. So that was intentionally to be separate from this item, but not to be duplicative of this item. And it was directed to us after we got direction for this item.
In what section?
That would be a new, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That would be a new section, essentially Section C, I believe.
Of 73.114.
I believe that'd be a new section to the ordinance.
Okay, can I just, sorry, I'm going to throw everyone for a curveball, but taking Supervisor Anderson's point that this is about fire risk as kind of the core point, and his point that his view is that this has gotten somehow away from fire risk. What if we just said that this section can be enforced when there's an imminent risk of harm to public health or safety, and get rid of this whole conversation about shelter availability? It's just that this is only applicable when there's an imminent risk to, like, what if we just struck the whole thing, like the violations and all the things about available shelter? What if instead of saying law enforcement may issue a criminal citation to enforce, what if we just got rid of A, and then and B, we keep A, we get rid of B, and then C, instead of it saying law enforcement officers may issue a criminal citation and enforce a violation of section regardless of where the violation poses an imminent risk. We should say law enforcement officials may issue a criminal citation to enforce a violation only when the violation poses an imminent risk of harm to public health or safety. So we get rid of the entire conversation.
I collaboratively, quietly, gently second that motion.
There's got to be a path forward, right? Like, none of us want to fire. So, thank you.
So I am withdrawing my original motion, and I'm seconding your motion.
So we would just, and again, I think everyone's going to have to read this again. So, sorry, Ryan.
Nope, you're fine. I got it.
A lot of thinking on the dais going on today. So it would just be.
Yeah.
Very transparent. A lot of public decision transparency. So we have A is fine. You leave A. You just get rid of B. And then C, it just says law enforcement officers may only issue.
Okay, so
may only issue a citation.
Oh,
you could get rid of criminal, right? Just only issue a citation.
Okay, so I'll strike this.
To enforce a violation of section where the violation poses an imminent risk of harm to whatever. And then we can say this part, that was Supervisor Montgomery Stubbs' amendment, where death, serious injuries, spread of wildfire, hazardous communicable disease.
Okay, so just clarification. So law enforcement officers may only issue a citation, and then is there anything else that needs to be struck from here?
Yes, regardless of the availability of shelter.
Thank you very much.
Law enforcement officers
may only issue a citation to enforce a violation of section 73.108 where the violation
poses an imminent risk of death, serious injury, or spread of wildfire or hazardous communicable disease.
So,
is that, I think that's, my understanding is that was Supervisor Anderson's original intent, was that we're just trying to make sure that people can't camp and start fires, and that this has nothing to do with shelter availability. This is just about not camping and starting fires.
Just one clarification point, so we have it for County Council. So we're striking the violations section right here?
No. Leave the word,
okay.
So I'll read it again.
Thank you.
Law enforcement officers may only issue a citation to enforce a violation of section 73.108 where the violation poses an imminent risk of death, serious injury, or spread of wildfire or hazardous communicable disease.
Okay, striking this part then, we are good. And then I believe you also said to strike all of B.
I think that we seem to be really stuck on B. So if what we're really trying to do is just say law enforcement can move folks off land when there's a potential fire risk, that seems like the easiest approach here. And I guess my question, I think, for Andrew, and does this give you enough tools to make sure that if there is a fire risk, you can get folks, because I think this is real. I think this is very real. We do know that these are fire risks. I will say, personally, I have had constituents complain because there was someone camping in their yard and they had firewood. And and they couldn't get them off the land and they had to call. So this is unincorporated, I know, but this is something that's also happened in my own district. So this is a real issue. So I just want to make sure that this would then, Andrew, give you guys the tools you need to make sure that if there's a fire risk that we can deal with it before it becomes a hazard.
And thank you for the question, Supervisor, Vice Chair. It's my understanding that this does give us enough tools and resources to enforce. In addition to that, like I mentioned earlier, we also have other tools in the toolkit as well that allows additional protections through the penal code that we can enforce.
So can I see, I'm not sure, I'm reading a whole bunch of stuff up here. What is the language you have?
I think
so it's just C?
Just C.
And we're striking all of B, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That was my motion, and that was seconded by Supervisor Anderson.
Okay, so I will go ahead and strike through all of this because this is.
Make sure you don't take it off the screen, so Supervisor Desmond can read it.
No.
Well, I need to read C.
Actually, B, yeah, and before I strike it, B is all struck, and
Okay, so it's no longer a criminal citation?
No, it actually creates more, it could be criminal, it creates more flexibility.
All right, so a citation of any form.
Of any form.
To enforce the section 7103, where the violation poses an imminent risk of, why take out public health or public safety?
That was my amendment, just to further clarify what public health or public safety means. Death, serious injury. Is somebody singing?
No, it's for the
law enforcement. Okay. I have eagle ears.
Okay, so you got
death, serious injury, or spread of wildfire, or hazardous communicable disease.
Hazardous communicable disease, as opposed to just a regular communicable disease?
We can take hazardous out, but I mean, generally.
Hazardous, it's a little confusing to me. I just want to make sure that law enforcement has the tools and we're not tripping them up. I'd leave the harm public health or public safety. I think they know what that is.
Well, just from my experience, that is not always the case. And so we want to make sure that I wanted to make sure we were specific because this is, it dovetails with our concern around fire.
All right, take out hazardous, I'll be happy on that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. We've got a motion and a second. You changed to the second is?
Claudia.
So since we don't have all the interlineation shown on the screen, I want to be very clear that the amendment is the ordinance with the proposed amendments as shown on the screen to subdivision C of 73.114.
And striking B.
And striking B, eliminate striking B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And I just put a strike through all of B and then as shown as on screen for section C.
And why don't we just pause, make sure everyone has time to feel ready to vote.
I guess I just want to verify, you've struck regardless of availability of shelter, but even still, it's regardless of availability of shelter.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
This is takes out, because we're taking out B, which was a whole thing about shelter, then we don't even need to talk about shelter because we've taken out a conversation about shelter. This is just law enforcement may only issue these citations, if there is a threat of all these bad things, especially wildfire. That's kind of the spirit of this. Okay. And the letter. Okay, if we're ready to vote, does anyone need another minute? Can you change the motions and the seconds on the screen?
Vice Chair Lester-Newman, yes, I have done that. So we have a motion by Supervisor Anderson, a second by Supervisor Desmond. Nope.
No, it was a second.
The acting chair made the motion.
I made the motion, and Supervisor Anderson seconded
So point of clarification, are you withdrawing your motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will go ahead and make a motion by Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and a second by Supervisor Anderson. Thank you for that clarification.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. If we're all ready, we can go ahead and vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We can take a video of our deliberation and share it with the civics class. So thank you to my colleagues for working through this together. That was amazing. Okay. So we will move on to our next item. We have item 21. And do we have a staff presentation? Yes. Okay, we have a staff presentation. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning again, Vice Chair and board members. This item before your board today highlights the success of the county's efforts to continue to reimagine underutilized and excess county land to spur affordable housing development. Development of affordable housing on county land complements housing efforts like the Innovative Housing Trust Fund, No Place Like Home program, and expansion of project-based vouchers. These efforts support the county's framework for ending homelessness and the housing blueprint by ensuring the county continues to focus on providing more safe, stable, and sustainable affordable housing resources throughout the region. I will now turn the presentation over to David Estrella, Director of Housing and Community Development Services.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. Since 2017, the county has invested over $325 million for the creation and preservation of 71 developments in 36 communities throughout the region. These efforts will not only enhance the quality of life over the span of the affordability period, but will also have positive economic impact, such as creating employment for San Diegans in construction, property management, and related industries. In total, the county's regional affordable housing impact from the inception of the Innovative Housing Trust Fund in 2017 include the results shown here on the slide. The 71 developments are all 100% affordable housing, serving extremely low, very low, and low-income households. These developments are a testament to the county's commitment to creating regional partnerships with local cities, service providers, and affordable housing developers throughout the region. HCDS, in partnership with DGS, has led a coordinated effort to review county-owned land that's determined to be excess to county needs for the feasibility of affordable housing. There are 11 county sites that provide affordable housing today or will provide affordable housing in the upcoming years. All sites have been declared surplus, developers have been selected, and are in various stages of development, including negotiations, pursuing financing and entitlements, or in the process of construction. When the 11 sites are completed, they will provide nearly 1,800 homes for low-income San Diegans. I'll now turn it over to Marco Medved, Director, Department of General Services, to review the items before you today. Marco.
Thank you, David. The first item before you today is approval of a disposition and development agreement, or DDA, with the San Diego Community Housing Corporation in partnership with the National Community Renaissance of California on the county-owned site in District 5 at 620 East Valley Parkway in Escondido. This development is proposed as 136 affordable senior homes, serving people with an average area median income of 44%, including a child care center that will be open to the public. Other amenities include a small park, bicycle storage and repair area, fenced dog run, and resident services. The development will meet LEED Silver equivalent using energy-efficient all-electric systems and will have on-site solar power generation. The DDA outlines the terms of a lease, a 99-year ground lease at $1 per year that will be executed when the developer receives their entitlements and financing to construct the project, and construction will start in 2028. The next item for your approval is the DDA with the San Diego Housing Commission on county-owned land in District 4 at 5202 University Avenue in the city of San Diego. In 23, your board authorized staff to explore the viability of a potential conveyance of the site. The county-owned site is adjacent to a property owned by the Housing Commission that will undergo a densification and rehabilitation project. This action will eliminate displacement of current residents in the Housing Commission development by constructing new affordable homes on the county-owned parcel. The Housing Commission is in the process of finalizing the design, which will include approximately 90 units for seniors on the county-owned portion, and approximately 150 units for low-income families or seniors on the adjacent Housing Commission portion. The DDA has been finalized, and after entitlements and financing have been obtained, the site will be conveyed via a nominal sale with a deed restriction limiting to the site to affordable housing in perpetuity. San Diego Housing Commission estimates construction start in 2028 as well. So today we're requesting that your board find that the proposed actions are exempt from CEQA and authorize the execution of the DDAs. And this concludes our presentation. We're open to your questions.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to public comment, then we can have a conversation on our board.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 7 total requests to speak, 2 individuals in person and 5 requesting to speak by phone. Also like to note for the record, we did receive 2 e-comments on this item. Both were in opposition. For any individuals that have requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using those instructions that were provided to you. We'll go ahead and begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak. You'll then have 2 minutes to address the board. I'd like to invite forward John Seymour and Ted, I believe it's Mira. You can come forward in any order.
That would be Ted Miyahara from San Diego Community Housing Corporation. Good morning, John Seymour from National Community Renaissance National Corps, and we are co-developer with San Diego Community Housing Corporation. Thank you, board, for your super support of affordable housing as indicated on the chart within the region. We look forward today for your support for the DDA and the ground lease. This project is called Valley Creek Senior. It's composed of 136 homes, 2 of which will be for the full-time on-site property managers, maintenance managers. 12 of the homes will be for formerly homeless low-income senior veterans, and 122 homes will be for low-income seniors. We'll also include, as staff indicated, a very robust up to 5,800 square foot childcare facility for Escondido residents. We are working to the best of our ability to make that free childcare to the people of Escondido. The site is currently in a qualified census tract right now. It's identified by HUD, and it appears that it could qualify for additional financing when constructing that child care center as a community service facility, meaning co-locating the child care and the affordable housing, which is consistent with the county's child care blueprint. And that's what part of this development proposal is about. That's what we submitted and probably led us to where we are today. This would be our National Corps' second large-scale child care facility in San Diego, co-locating in Mission Cove, the city of Oceanside. We have done that successfully. 50 kids, 10 infants, 16 toddlers, and 24 preschool kids. We've also been awarded 67 project-based vouchers and 12 VASH vouchers for this project, and we're on the wait list for $3.5 million in the county, and then additional money coming from the city of Escondido gap financing. Thank you so much for your support.
Good morning, Ted Miyahara with the San Diego Community Housing Corporation, co-developer of this site. I'm here to offer my support for approval of the DDA for development of 620 East Valley Parkway. This is vacant, underutilized land, which will result in the development of 134 affordable units for seniors, including 12 formerly homeless veterans and a 5,800 square foot child care facility. I echo our development partner's comments, John Seymour. I won't repeat them, I'll spare you. This is the best use for the site. The region needs more housing of all types, especially affordable housing. We're housing some of the region's most vulnerable populations, including extremely low and very low income seniors, also homeless veterans. The county is making real impact in communities through the use of SLA sites. I think the slide deck depicted that very well. 11 sites, creating over 1,700 units. I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to thank county staff. As a developer of affordable housing, I can tell you that the process that the county has through the release of their SLA sites is well refined. The application process is straightforward, it's very transparent, staff is easy to work with, and they're receptive. I'm saying this stuff because it doesn't always happen that way in other jurisdictions. So the county is making real headway through the release of these SLA sites and the process that they've rolled out to do that. Please support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
All aboard. The Escondido building sounds nice. The University Avenue building sounds like it will really over-densify the area. But the bottom line is that both buildings are apparently not going to be finished till the end of the decade. In fact, I noticed in the presentation that only about 127 housing units are actually complete. And most will be started only in 2 years. This one will start in 3 years. We have a housing crisis. Act like it. Build the units that can go up quickly before the end of the decade. And I can't imagine how long the waiting list will be by then. Mark and I keep suggesting 3D printed homes, tiny homes, shipping crate homes, even Adobe homes. I know of a concrete sack house in Berkeley built years ago. Try it. There are a lot of faster things than homes which won't be ready for 5 years. And with so many uncertain funding sources, it makes more sense to construct cheaper, quicker buildings. And also, if you build homes that are actually available sooner, it is less likely that if the population of people who need houses decreases, it's less likely that you'll be stuck with a bunch of excess housing that no one really needs. So please, think of these things before you go ahead and approve all these traditional buildings that take years to build. And, it's dumb. The waiting list will...
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Consuelo here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed with your comments.
Okay, and Ryan, I was on my the last call. It wasn't my device. I wasn't muted, so I wanted to know, how do we go about getting time for that? Because I really wanted to speak on that.
We are past that item, so we cannot go back to it.
I know, but it wasn't due to anything on my end, so that's what I wanted to clarify. And then you also had another caller besides me who wasn't able to speak. Anyways, okay, so it's unfortunate that people aren't realizing that this board's actions here, they're loud, and they are really only saying that all work being done by the county on our dime is in fact in preparation of the county being an impoverished, low-income majority. And so that's basically what they're prepping for. Again, that is all UN. These, shareholders and developers making money off affordable housing projects for 50 times the cost of 3D printed houses, and taxpayers subsidizing 2/3 of rent with vouchers is an unsustainable scam. And Mark Dorian will remind us all that Rosa Corey talks about this UN agenda and the housing model, and what they in fact are doing right in front of our faces, under our noses. It's just pretty rude. It's just whatever. I'm done.
Thank you. We'll go to the next speaker.
Before you start my time, you need to mitigate what just happened with that last item, because I called in, Consuelo called in. You could hear her for a second. Something happened. I was told I was next, that I had 2 minutes and 30 seconds. As soon as you couldn't get her audio in, you said there was no more callers. I called the clerk.
Pause your time.
Please.
Andrew, can you please?
Because you guys, this was in.
What the rule is.
Audra.
Yeah.
No, I know, but I was told by the clerk.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and mute you. I will read out the statement of what happened to your call. So the constituent registered under 2 different names with the same contact information, so it treated you as 2 different speakers. For that reason, you did not initially appear in the speaker queue under your second registered name. We were able to diagnose the issue and match you with your 2 registrations, and we apologize for any inconvenience that may have caused.
Audra, was that clear?
Hang on, can I just say something real quick? Because I was told that I was the next person in line. So even if there was 2, I was still registered. It came up. I was in the queue. It said, you're next. So just because that happened doesn't mean that you didn't have me in the queue. I even called the clerk, and she said, I'll let Ryan know, because I was signed up. And then she said, call back. They'll bring you back on. Then I had to call back again, and I said, they're not addressing it. But you guys went on for almost an hour with that. And so you should mitigate that, because you are keeping people from speaking when you do that. Because I was there, I was told I was next, and as soon as Ryan there's no Consuelo, he said that was it. And I'm like, well, that's weird, because I was told I was next in the queue. So there's a problem there if you're trying to make that excuse that isn't relevant.
Okay, Audra,
so you need to
I
give
appreciate
people back
this is
their
helpful.
time, and you've done that before.
So what I'm hearing from you is that there was a technical issue with calling in, and you were in the queue, you were told you were in the queue, and then you were not allowed to speak. So, Ryan, can we look into what happened with that system?
Yes, we've already looked into it. Constituents only need to sign up once. The problem that arose was because she registered twice under 2 different names, didn't even register using the same name, but the CRM matches up her PII, so her phone number, and that caused a potential issue. It was not showing on my screen that she was in the queue. The last caller, Consuelo, where the phone cut out, that was no issue on our end either, so I'm not sure what happened on her end. These are the unfortunate realities we deal with trying to offer public participation, but we will continue to try to address the issue and make it streamlined for constituents so they have the best experience possible.
So just to summarize, it did not show up on your end that she was in the queue because there were 2 names that had been.
It did not, and I have a screen recording that I'm more than happy to share with anyone.
Okay, was she in the queue?
Not from my point of view.
Okay. Audra, why don't you go ahead and just make your comment on both this item and the last item, if you had something additional to say, because we need to verify what happened on the technical back end.
I understand. It did say I was in the queue and said I was next, so I'm not sure why I wouldn't show up. That doesn't make sense to me. So I can comment on the first one?
Yes, starting your time.
And then
We're starting your time, and yes, go ahead. You can comment on the first item and this item.
Yeah.
Okay. When we're talking about the homeless, it's really, that you guys are sitting here and acting like they're going to be trespassing, or, Joel, when you're talking about putting homeless, before arson. I mean, of course, you don't want anybody to burn your house down, but we're not helping out the homeless. We're actually keeping them in these dire situations where they need to keep warm in some way. If we had housing and you guys could go out there and make sure that there's always beds available, then you would be able to get them off the streets. But most of the people want to get help, but they also don't like the help that you guys give them, because they don't feel, a lot of them have to give up their animals or different things. And when you guys are sitting there putting people in danger with all of the best stuff, you need to be looking at that too, because you're sitting here trying to gaslight them as though they're the only ones that are, starting fires or a fire risk. And I think you need to be more mindful about making sure that you have places for them. As we know, you don't, and the funding doesn't get spent the way that it should to make sure that these people have a safe place to go where they can get off the streets. Even if you take them off the streets, there's no housing for them to go to. So it's like a cyclical, cycle that people just kind of go through, and then nothing ever happens. Nothing ever gets better with it. And feel like you guys didn't even really know what was going on with that item, and you shouldn't be making decisions when you're not fully clear. And if there are children that are affected by that, how are they going to be addressed? I think you need to have some kind of plan in place. If you do encounter children, what does that look like for them? Would it just be, would you give them a ticket? Would you arrest them? Would you put them through CPS, which would be even worse? I just think that there's a lot of things that you guys don't consider when you're taking that in.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, not seeing any more callers. That concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, my colleagues have asked to speak, so Supervisor Desmond, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is on the affordable housing, and particularly in Escondido on this. I'm glad to see these projects are moving forward, but I want to thank county staff for working with the San Diego Community Housing Corporation, with Ted and National Corps, with John for the efforts. So I saw them sitting through all day yesterday and then here again today. John, thanks for sticking it out. This project in Escondido is great. It's 136 new apartment homes for low-income seniors. And what's really kind of telling with National Corps, what they do is they have 2 on-site property managers, which is unfortunately a thing that we absolutely need in some of these low-income housing units, but we appreciate the help and the assistance that you provide on site. And also with the child care facility adjacent to the seniors, I think it's a wonderful combination there. So, and just my office, we reached out to the mayor of Escondido, and throughout this whole process for the last couple of years, I reached out to all the council members and the mayor at the time, and the Mayor Dane White, he's very supportive of this project. So I want to say thanks again. I look forward to seeing the end result, being at the ribbon cutting for this one, and I'll move item 21.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to second this recommendation or this motion, and I just want to comment briefly on the appreciation of seeing the units set aside for very low income. And at the county, we're doing pretty good with our RENA numbers overall, but not for our very low income. And so it's really good anytime a project comes forward like this that we're able to see the efforts of staff and our partners prioritizing the very low income units and also units for our seniors. So thank you so much for all of the public comment, including those who came out and are in chambers, and thank you for the comments around your experience with the process. That is helpful for us and for staff as well. And the last thing I will say is God bless the child care workers. That's a lot of kids in one place. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I just want to say I think this is really great. I mean, we set out as a county a few years ago to really identify surplus sites and prioritize building affordable housing. And I just want to note that we're not getting RENA credit for any of these homes that we're building. Right, this is in cities of San Diego, city of Escondido. I mean, we're getting RENA credit for maybe I don't know, maybe some in some very few. But for the most part, all these surplus land sites are all in cities. So when we talk about partnership between the county and the cities, I can't think of a better example of partnership than us taking our county land, our county resources, and utilizing it to build affordable housing that, frankly, we don't even get credit for building. It's just the right thing to do, and it's something that we as a board have kind of consistently moved forward. We made a commitment nearly 4 years ago to try to build 10,000 units on public land, and I think we are well on our way. So appreciate the team, but I also just appreciate the leadership of my colleagues that we continue doing the right thing and really stepping up to be in partnership with all of our cities. So thank you. And I will be happy to support this. Please vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Okay, so we're on to Fire Protection District Item 1. Do we have a presentation? Okay. If none of my colleagues need a presentation, we'll just begin with public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We do have 5 total requests to speak, all coming via phone. I'd also like to note for the record, we did receive 1 e-comment on this item, which was in opposition. For any of the individuals that requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using those instructions that were provided to you. We're going to go ahead and, since we don't have any in-person speakers, we'll go ahead and start with the callers. Again, when it's your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments. Go ahead and begin with our first caller.
What just happened? You guys told me I could speak on both items, and you only gave me one item to speak on. I didn't even get to address the last item.
Audra, you had 2 minutes,
Hello?
and you could use your time however you want.
You didn't say that. Well, you didn't say that. You should have, because that's why I was trying. You should have been clearer, because I should have gotten that time back. Now I didn't get to speak on the item you just voted on. Like, I mean, you should have said you have 2 minutes to talk about both of them.
You have 2 minutes to talk about
but not
both
say
of them.
you have time.
Okay, go ahead. You have 2 minutes to talk about both of them.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that affordable housing is never affordable. You guys are, by doing the 1 year lease, $1 year lease is ridiculous. And that's why it's such a racket, is because these people come in and get a bunch of money, don't really provide the affordable housing, and people still suffer. But as long as they say they're going to, you never give us the full breakdown of what each one's really going to cost to see if this is going to be something that is feasible and that we should spend our money on. Anyway, the fire protection, you guys want to get increased fees, then you need to stop putting BESs out. You need to stop being the ones that are putting in these type of infrastructure that is going to cause people, like that burns down people's houses. And you want to sit here and act like you don't want somebody else to burn down your house. Well, you guys are going to be complicit in the total destruction of a lot of property when you continue to put these in place, and the fires can't be mitigated. But you want us to pay more money. Maybe you should think about stopping the things that are going to increase the fire risk, and also mitigate the fact that you're putting in roundabouts and all of these things that are going to make it where people's ability to evacuate is impeded. And again, you still don't have any kind of evacuation plan that you're going around from place to place to make sure everybody knows what to do in the fact when there is an emergency. So until you can do things like that, we shouldn't be increasing fees. And when you do that, you can then take somebody's home if they can't pay it. So this is all about, basically eminent domain at that point, if you're just going to kind of take over the land and everything. And you guys need to figure out what's going on with these meetings and the call-in, because it isn't better. And the fact that you're disenfranchising people, even like Consuelo, it's a huge problem. And you guys know it, and you want to make excuses, just like what happened yesterday with Claudia, and saying that people were donating our time. Nobody was donating their time. They were just speaking when it was their time, or playing a recording, which has been happening for...
Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Bold. The 1,000 on the second line of the formula in the board letter needs some kind of link to the equation and the label, like square feet or something. I mean, people need to follow along. We can't do that if you just have a number sitting there. I cannot understand why the fire management fee rates for medical and offices are so high and hotel and industrial so low. I can guess. I mean, it's probably a scam giveaway to the industrial and the hotel people. But anyway, this would seem to discourage new hospitals and offices in the unincorporated areas. I don't think it's equitable or fair. The fee table needs to be revised and balanced out. Now, on the speakers getting cut off issue, I got the same weird message as Audra, even though I already did on agenda yesterday. So I'm not sure the problem is, in fact, registering under different names. And maybe the problem is that we have to transfer our names to the next day if the items are carried over to the next day. And maybe you should do it instead, since that seems to work fine. Anyway, good luck with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Go to our next caller.
Okay. So what item are we on? I'm sorry, Ryan.
We are on fire protection 1.
Not safe. And the house fires is having those freaking underground utility things that they're trying to, or they're going to be putting in here in Bonita, on Bonita Road, because that just, I mean, nothing makes sense. I know some people believe it to be safe, but since we're talking about fire, I'm just going to talk about that. Yeah. Explosions, electrocutions, injuries, damage to water lines, that can result in flooding and service disruptions, damaged communication lines, all kinds of things. But yep, let's just continue to ignore all that stuff and put in some underground utility lines. Anyways, as far as, the calling in system, there's, you guys need a lot of fine tuning with that. And, that's all I got.
All right, thank you. We'll go.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that was our last caller, so that concludes public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments from my colleagues? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Supervisor Anderson, a second by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
Okay, great. Now we will move on to the consent agenda for our Wednesday docket. And just begin to see if any of my colleagues have any comments or any items to pull. Supervisor Anderson? Okay, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. Supervisor Desmond?
No items to pull, and I'll move to approve the consent agenda 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. We shall go on to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We do have 9 total requests to speak on items on the consent agenda. All of those are coming via phone. For any individuals that requested to speak on the items on the consent agenda by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. I'll give you a moment to do so. Seeing we got callers called in, we will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. Again, when it's your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. And we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
All bold. The Gillespie Field thing, we should have the agreement in an attachment. The board says the agreement needs to be approved by June 30th. You have several meetings where you can amend the terms, and you should. No one should be living in or cooking in the hangars, as Robert German has pointed out. It is a huge fire hazard in an area with toxic and flammable gases around, whether they're residual in the floors and the walls or active fumes. And the lead in aviation fuel should be banned. It is not in general use, and there are less hazardous ways pump up an airplane's performance without spraying the neighbors and kids with lead. These should be included in the amendment. So there's lots of time to change it. Please reject this defective JPA renewal. Two, the transparency stuff. It is good to have money in hand for the IBWC U.S. International Sewage Plant repairs. Hope it doesn't get pulled back like HHSA grant. I really wonder how much of this would have actually been solved if we, the people, had just fixed this on our own instead of begging for outside help and funding. Just the notion of multiple agencies, each with its own power play agenda and interjurisdictional competition, not intramural, by the way, it makes me cringe. No wonder so little has been done. They're busy fighting each other over who does or doesn't do what. House filters. You could have done this long ago. Same with crashing down toxic fumes.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go ahead and go to our next speaker.
Consuelo. So 5 mile per hour speed limit reductions. Again, another incremental move by the county to get us all out of our vehicles for the UN agenda, for the implementation of the UN agenda. Let's see, I'll just kind of repeat all the bold just said. I'll repeat it. I won't play it because I don't want to get cut off and have you violate a Brown Act. Gillespie Field Development Council, JPA, we should have the agreement in an attachment. The board says the agreement needs to be approved by June 30th. You have several meetings where you could amend the terms. For one thing, no one should be living or cooking in the hangars, as Robert Gurman has pointed out. It is a huge fire hazard in an area with toxic and flammable gases around, whether residual in the walls, floors, or active fumes. And the use of lead in aviation fuel should be banned. It is not in general use, and there are less hazardous ways to pump up an airplane's performance without spraying the neighbors and kids with lead. These should be included in the amendment. So do that. Please reject this defective JPA renewal. Okay, I'm not done.
All right, thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, you can continue with your
still
comments.
Here. Okay, so renewal local emergency law. It is good to have money in hand for the IBWC, U.S. International Sewage Plant repairs. I hope it doesn't get pulled like the HHSA grant. This is from Paul. I really wonder how much.
And thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
You guys in your traffic advisory committee and, getting revenue by giving speeding tickets because you're going to lower the speed limit instead of really going after real crime that's happening in the county. It just brings in revenue, but it also impedes people's ability to travel, which you don't have the authority to do. You don't have the authority to usurp our freedoms that we have, and you continue to do that and act like, you're doing it for our safety, and it's always under the guise of safety when there's a problem and the government's saying they're here to help. And with the sewage in Mexico, until you're ready to go to Mexico and have them fix the problem, it doesn't matter how much money we spend, it's always going to continue to be worse, especially when they turn on their system and it floods into their streets. That's what they need to be doing, because then they'll damn well mitigate it pretty quickly if it's always on their property and not going into ours. But until you guys do something about that, these local emergencies are going to continue to be proclaimed for eons on end. And, if we really cared about the environment with Gillespie Field and all this stuff that Robert comes and tells you all the time about the lead, that you would think that, you know, the lead would be an issue and that we should try and mitigate that. But instead you're targeting cars and you're trying to get people out of their cars because you guys still got to travel to the United Nations and different places to go and get information from people that are not elected, that we haven't chosen, and you're implementing those things. So like if you really did care about the environment, it would show. You wouldn't sit here and poison people even with the water and all of those things. But you guys continue to do those things, and it's just really sad because people believe that you're here to make things better for them and that you care about the environment. And so if you did, then you would be mitigating that, not just ignoring it and not just going after cars and people's ability to travel and go wherever they want. I mean, it's just ridiculous how on one hand you can say certain things and on the other hand
Thank you. Your time is up. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on items on the consent agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, please vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to item number 4. This is the noticed public hearing, Santa Ysabel County Preserve, approve acquisition of approximately 540 acres of open space preserve. We have a presentation?
No, Vice Chair, we do not have a presentation. We can provide one if the board desires, but we do not have one teed up for you.
Okay, then we'll go to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We do have 7 total requests to speak, all coming via phone again. I'd like to also note for the record, we did receive 1 e-comment, which was in opposition. Again, for any of the individuals that requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it's your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. And we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
It was really nice. It would be nice if this did anything, you know, to really, you know, provide any kind of benefit. But when you guys do preserve land, usually it goes to crap because it's not taken care of and it becomes pretty much a landfill. And, you know, you act like this is going to support, you know, sustainability goes, habitat and biodiversity, biological connectivity, greenhouse gas reductions. I don't understand that. If it's already open space, it doesn't really make any sense. You just like want to, and if you want to reduce greenhouse gas, why are you trying to densify everything? Put everybody in one area. It's like if people were more spread out, the air quality would be better if there was more trees, more things like that. Instead, we're just putting everybody in these like cement blocks and, you know, homes that are all densely populated where there's high fire zones. And so it's like all the things you do are counterintuitive and productive to what you're saying. And then you're saying that having this conservation of property provides flood control benefits and protection of water quality, which is BS because you guys are poisoning the water. So it's like, and you can't even, you know, we had flooding because of your lack of ability to keep up with the infrastructure. So it's like you make all these excuses like this is actually going to help and move the needle forward, but it's all a bunch of BS. This is also a part of the United Nations, is to take up a bunch of the land, put everybody in the densely populated areas in a 15-minute city. So, like, it doesn't, that none of that makes sense. If you're condensing where all of that pollution would be, that's actually detrimental to not only the environment, but then the people as well. So how about you guys start doing stuff that's actually going to make things better instead of a bunch of nonsense where you're wasting our money and making it so that you can take people's homes because they can't afford to pay the fees that you guys want to put out because you can't even keep up with the being able to provide what needs to be provided for those fees. So it's like a...
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go ahead and go to our next speaker.
Okay, so it says, well, the acquisition of land for Santa Ysabel County Preserve. The maps provided compared with others suggest that the area which I passed. I think that's on the 78, which appears to be the only one in Santa Isabel, and also several.
Consuelo, just to let you know, your phone is cutting in and out.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ryan. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you again.
Okay, so where did I leave off at? So basically, yeah, so the board letter should, but does not include, does not indicate what would happen to these, private, the homes, the service station, the art gallery. So therefore, we do not approve. And there's also, acquiring land for preservation, while beneficial, can also dangers like financial constraints, potential conflicts with other conservation efforts, and the risk of easement becoming outdated or harmful.
You still there, Consuelo? Consuelo, we cannot hear you. All right, no responsiveness. We'll go ahead and go to our next caller.
Paula Bold, I hope you'll give Consuelo another chance to speak before the item gets called. The maps provided that I compared them with others, they suggest the area of the proposed preserve includes several significant sites, such as the Santa Isabel Art Gallery and the service station, which appears to be the only one in Santa Isabel, and also several private homes. I don't think you should be basically cutting half of a city and having them move elsewhere. The board letter should but does not indicate what would in fact happen to these. The plan should be complete, not incremental, as Consuelo mentioned. Like anything else, you need to be fully transparent with the public. Please reject this scheme. We know what the public hearings, by the way, consist of, if anyone actually was able to show up. But like the last public hearing, 197 people representing the county. That's a joke. Flooding in Santa Isabel, as Audra mentioned, you think there's flooding in Santa Isabel at 3,000 or 4,000 feet up? I doubt it. And there are other ridiculous things. I wonder when the FAA will cut off funds for approving lead and people in hangars potentially burn.
All right, your time is up. Consuelo, I see that you've called back in, so you had about 20 seconds left, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, give you 20 seconds. You there?
Okay, yeah, I just want to, yep, can you hear me?
Yep, you can go ahead. I'll begin your time right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Paul was just saying. Also how, it's the board letter should but does not indicate what would happen to these things like the private homes, the service station, the art gallery. So therefore...
And Consuelo, that's your time. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just say a couple comments. So first of all, I think this is exciting and great. I think we're seeing at a national level the gutting of protections for our national forests and public lands. And that's, in my mind, a real tragedy. So today, here in San Diego County, we're expanding our Santa Isabel Preserve by over 500 acres. And it's so important to protect this land for our community, for biodiversity, for our quality of life, for future generations. And it's not just about protecting open space, it's also about us as a local government really stepping up where the federal government is stepping back. So our county to date has protected over 80,000 acres through our MSCP, and this is some really important work. I'm really excited to see it continue. So I'm happy to make a motion. And we have a second. Any other comments? Okay, let's call the vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson, remember that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
Okay, so we have a hard stop at noon. I think we should be able to, how many speakers do we have for this item?
We have 7 total speakers, but we've only had about 3 calling in, so I think we can probably get through this item.
Okay, we'll do item number 5 then. Go ahead. This is the notice public hearing. Set a hearing for May 21st. Adopt a resolution ordinance for the formation of the underground utility district for Bonita Road Phase 4. Okay, public comment?
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson Reamer. Like I said, we do have 7 total requests to speak. Those are all coming via phone. Also like to note for the record, we did receive 1 e-comment on this item, which was in favor. Again, for any of the individuals that requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using those instructions that were provided to you. You will have 2 minutes to speak. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments, and we will go ahead and begin with our first caller.
And I find it interesting why you want to underground, especially in this board letter where it's talking about like what it actually provides. And, you know, this has been going on since the 70s. It's like crazy. I mean, in 1967, you guys brought forward something about private property and saying that things should be all underground from the get-go. But the excuse is that it's for aesthetics, improving neighborhood aesthetics by removing visible power lines and poles from the landscape, creating a cleaner, more visually appealing environment with unobstructed views, you know, and like, but the fire risk is down lower. But that's been like the reason why you're claiming that needs to happen when the fires weren't started by the power lines. It doesn't mean the power lines didn't affect the fires, but that's not why they were started. And, you know, when SDG&E is sitting here raping people left and right, you know, just pocketing millions and billions of dollars from overcharging people, they should be the ones to be, you know, paying for that. We shouldn't have to pay. And I don't understand what the $50,000 for this item is entailing for the amount of money that's being spent. It's like, I mean, if you could explain that so people understand. But also, like, when you are undergrounding stuff, how do we know or not know, like, what the effects of that is to the environment? And, you know, things like earthquakes aren't just, like, a natural thing. Those things are happening because of what we're doing to the earth and or bombing different things that could potentially be happening underground. I mean, we have underground tunnels that, you know, it's like that's where a lot of those kids go that you guys wanted to come in across the border that were trafficked. And it's funny because you talk about quality of life. If you really cared about the quality of life, you would care that a baby is ripped apart limb by limb in the womb to murder it, or that children are being raped and molested in the county service providers that you guys contract with. You got employees that are ripping families apart and putting children in abusive situations. So if you really did care about the quality.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go ahead and go to our next caller.
Yeah, it's about time that you put all these things underground. Overhead utilities are inherently dangerous, and the more that are put underground, the better. Cut down on fires, but especially putting things underground like battery energy storage and EV fires from a polluter industrial car storage facility you put in a rural residential zone. I think that was a very, very stupid move. Battery and EV storage is coming at a huge cost to society. SNEV prolonged or caused wildfires, put out so much carbon that I don't know if you can even say decarbonization is a zero-sum game anymore. Fires can reignite spontaneously, and they burn so hot, like 2 or 3 times as hot as regular fires. These S or EV fires can melt cars, metal, heirlooms, and all those things. And it probably makes identifying the dead bodies a bit harder too. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and go to our next speaker.
Swallow here. Okay, so I am going to have to say that, yeah, this is pretty dangerous, actually. Hitting or damaging underground utilities during excavation work can lead to serious consequences, including explosions, fires, electrocution, and severe injuries. I'm going to scroll down over to here as far as what OSHA has to say. And cave-ins during trenching and excavation procedures claim the lives of at least 2 workers every month. It's a grim statistic, but can be blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to open that. But what the hell, man? I just don't trust it. I don't like it. I'm sorry. Other people will think it's, a great thing. I mean, there's gas lines that could be damaged, electrical lines. Striking electrical lines can cause, obviously, executions and shocks and fires. Y'all are concerned with fires. Water lines, damage to water pipes can cause flooding, property damage. They don't care. They don't even want us to have property. But communication lines, disruptions to communication lines can lead to service outages, which they probably are prepping to do. Hey, the plot thickens. Sewer lines. Damage to sewer lines can cause leaks, contaminations, and health risks. Other hazards, falls into excavations, toxic air, and falling objects are also potential dangers. Yeah, it's just, I don't like it. I don't like anything underground. That shouldn't be happening. Just that other supposed earthquake we had the other month, or was it last month? Whatever. That was a rumble. That wasn't no earthquake. I've been in earthquakes. That was like a freaking explosion, and we all felt it. And that's crazy. So I don't like them implanting anything into the ground except for.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay. Any of my colleagues have any questions or comments?
No question. I will move the item.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present, voting aye.
Okay, Davia, I'd like to do another item before lunch. So if you could let us know, we have about 25 minutes. So between item 6, 7, and 8.
If you could give us a moment, Vice Chair, we will go ahead and get started with item. Why don't we go ahead and get started with the overall fee presentation? We do have an initial presentation, and item number 6 is our first in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Great. And then if we don't finish, we can just break. Okay.
Good morning, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and members of the board. I'm Vince Nicoletti, Director with Planning and Development Services. With me today are the Departments of Agriculture, Weights and Measures, the Department of Public Works, Parks and Recreation, and Agriculture, Weights and Measures. On behalf of these departments presenting cost recovery proposals for fiscal year 25-26, we'll provide an overview of the 3 items before you for consideration today. Then departments will present details for each of their proposals. For all Luge departments, approval of the fee adjustments will ensure they are able to continue to provide quality services for our community, maintain service levels, and continue to provide community outreach and education in support of regulatory compliance. Fee increases are never easy. However, we continue to face increases in the cost of doing business. To minimize the impacts of these increases to our customers, we evaluate our services to apply innovations and savings and are committed to returning to the board each year. This year, to achieve a balanced budget and maintain key public services, we are proposing to sunset some fee waivers and shift services previously funded by general purpose revenue to fee-supported programs. The proposed fee packages reflect standard assumptions and may not fully address cost increases based on future negotiated labor agreements due to the timing of these packages and labor negotiations currently underway. Increases in support we pay to other departments within the county, such as costs for facility management, contracting, and information technology, are also reflected in the proposed rates. The average proposed increases across all fee packages for this year's fees range from 4.5% to 7% for hourly rates, range from 4.5% to 7% for fees, and 4.8% to 10% for hourly rates. Fee revenue is vital because it not only funds departments' efforts in meeting state mandates, supporting agriculture and equity and commerce, regulating businesses, and protecting public health and safety, but also allows the departments to continue working toward achieving objectives that align with the board's strategic plan, which would otherwise be difficult to accomplish without this funding source. Each of our departments completes a comprehensive cost and fee analysis, an approach that is consistent across the county enterprise and followed by other groups with fees such as Health and Human Services and Public Safety. The fees for each program only cover the costs for those programs and the rates that are calculated to achieve full cost recovery. Departments conduct time studies and calculate hourly rates. Then they are reviewed by the auditor controller to ensure fees are developed in an accurate and transparent way. Key to our process in Luge is stakeholder engagement. Our departments conducted outreach through various formats in multiple languages to customers, professional associations, and advisory groups. We'll provide more information on the feedback received during their outreach later in the presentation. Our fees can fluctuate year to year, which is why the departments annually evaluate costs and the time it takes to provide services. This chart shows some of the costs impacting fees and to what degree they are within our control. Non-discretionary costs, such as salary and benefits, retirement contribution, and costs we pay to other departments, such as for IT, contracting support, facility management, and public liability, are outside of our control, and these represent the majority of our costs. The blue area on the chart represents discretionary costs, those that the departments with fee packages have control over and can be adjusted based on operational needs, such as services and supplies, vehicles, and equipment. These are also the costs that can positively impact through innovations and streamlining at the department level. Each year, our departments do all they can to contain costs and apply savings that occur as a result of our innovations and efficiencies. Some of the efficiencies that have been able to be implemented this past year include developing new methodologies for data tracking, automated billing processes, leveraging IT to create new inspection apps, and improved inspection routing and scheduling, and enhanced online services for customers. Collectively, these efficiencies have helped Luge departments save $2.9 million in annual cost savings. Without these cost containment efforts, along with ongoing cost containment savings due to projects completed in prior years, departments would be higher by 0.8% in ag weights and measures and 2.7% in Department of Environmental Health and Quality. For the land development fee package, building permit and plan check fees would be an average of 8.8% higher, and average hourly rates for all the departments would be an additional 4 to 4.3% higher without the innovations. All departments engage stakeholders and customers to obtain feedback on their cost recovery proposals and programs. Themes heard across the departments include a continued desire for annual review of fees and incremental adjustments, appreciation for staff's continued focus on operational efficiencies and cost containment. Stakeholders also express some of the increases are larger than prior years, which is having an impact on their operations and costs. The agricultural community reports that the economic uncertainties and rising input costs, like water and supplies, are creating operational challenges, and further cost increases are having an impact. Septic customers in environmental health and quality want to see sustained improvements and guaranteed review times. For the land development package, we received opposition letters from the North County Engineers and Land Surveyors Association, as well as the Building Industry Association that recognized the need for fee adjustments to address increasing county costs, but also requested collaboration on process improvements, additional self-certification programs, and converting additional discretionary permits to ministerial. Staff have already reached out to both groups to learn more about these recommendations. Our departments will have a confirmed and ongoing commitment for innovation and will share specific information later in the presentation. Approval of these fee adjustments will ensure departments are able to continue to deliver services in the manner our ratepayers expect. The fiscal year 25-26 recommended operational plan is based on these proposed adjustments. If there is no fee increase, Luge departments would need to request alternative funding in the amount of $3.8 million. If there is no fee increase and no alternative funding identified, we'll experience cost increases. We'll experience processing. If there is no fee increase and no alternative funding identified, we'll experience increased processing time, less support for customers, resulting in public spending more funding on private sector support versus county support on the permitting process. Resources would also be shifted away from innovation and outreach to frontline operations, which could disproportionately impact small businesses and individual customers, all of which could potentially lead to regulatory compliance issues with our businesses and increased risk to public health and safety. If a fee adjustment is not approved, the change in future year updates will be even greater based on the need to cover these increases in this proposal plus future year budget adjustments. This concludes the overview for the Luge Department proposals. Each fee proposal requires 2 hearings, and departments will include details on the recommendations associated with each agenda item. Up next is the land development proposal, followed by DEHQ, agenda number 7, and lastly, Ag Weights and Measures, agenda number 8. Each presentation will be followed by the opportunity to vote on the item. The land development team works together to review projects ranging from housing to renewable energy projects. Services include environmental and community character review for discretionary permits, all the way through inspection of homes and public infrastructure, such as the roads, parks, and pathways that make up our communities. This table summarizes the changes proposed for all 3 departments. PDS is highlighted in green, DPW in blue, and Parks and Recreation in gray. For PDS, the average flat fee would increase $101 or 4.8%. The average intake deposit would increase $479 or 6.5%. The average weighted hourly rate would increase $14 or 5.9%. For Public Works, the average fee would increase $13 or 4.5%. The average intake deposit would increase $229 or 7.5%. The average hourly rate would increase $19 or 8.4%. Parks and Recreation's average hourly rate would increase $15 or 10%. PDS is proposing to terminate 1 fee waiver program, our Homeowner and Business Owners Relief Act, funded by $820,000 of ongoing general purpose revenue. This is necessary to balance the county's budget and repurpose GPR across the enterprise. The program presently supports fee waivers for just over 2,000 permits a year for routine home improvement repairs, such as water heater replacement, window and door replacement, among others. The fees for these permits typically range from $100 to $500 for each permit. All other fee waiver programs within the department will continue. The fire victim, campaign sign, and urban agricultural incentive fee waiver programs at the top of the slide are all funded by one-time funding allocations. The land development team has been tracking the cost savings with process improvements and innovations, resulting in annualized cost containment of roughly $2.7 million that would otherwise be part of our fee increases. Examples of innovations we've deployed through collaboration with stakeholders include roughly half of our building permit volume being processed online, a self-certification program for 6 permit types, guaranteed review time program, self-service reports that save the county staff time and money as well as applicants, and mobile inspection for our field workers. In future years, we'll be deploying new electronic plan review options for customers. We hold regular stakeholder meetings where we receive feedback for new process improvements and policy initiatives. Fee ordinances require 2 hearings. Today's recommendations on item 6 include find the proposed actions are exempt from CEQA, waive board policy B29, approve the sunset of the Homeowner and Business Owner Relief Act, approve the first reading of the ordinance, and if approved, set hearings for May 21st, 2025. Adoption of the ordinance would take place after the second reading on May 21st, and the proposed fees would be effective July 1, 2025. This completes the presentation for the Land Development Cost Recovery Proposal, and staff are available for questions.
Okay, we'll go to public comment. How many speakers do we have?
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson. We have 8 total requests to speak, but it looks like we only have 2 callers called in right now.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. So we do have 8 total requests to speak by phone. No individuals in person. Also like to note for the record, we did receive 2 e-comments on this item. Both were in opposition. Again, for the phone callers, if you've requested to speak by phone, now is the time to dial into the conference line with the instructions that were provided to you. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. When it's your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
So you propose to increase fees, presumably, so you can continue your wasteful spending habits, excess contingencies, equity giveaways. You want to raise fees for land development by an average of 4.5 to 10%, which is very inflationary. And you want to eliminate the Homeowner Relief Act program, which provides eligible homeowners for minor home health and safety repairs. The results will be more shoddy and dangerous homes, which increases wildfire danger to everyone and financial pressure. Then you have the nerve to say these increases in PDS and DPW may not fully address cost increases based on future negotiated labor agreements, which is basically guaranteeing the future financial the rest of all the people of this county. And then you threaten to withhold services you're already planning to cut. Get a grip. I suggest the first thing is to share the pain of your salary, but maybe reduce the number of managers in the county a bit. And I'd like an independent audit first to verify that all the county's BS programs are not wasteful. Put money where your mouths are. Also, I noticed that there continue to be no in-house speakers on the land use stuff. That kind of tells me people just don't respect you enough to come here in person.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
That is so true, Paul the Bold, Consuelo here. It's, again, I think it's beyond responsible when you all can't even balance our county's budget, yet you continue to recklessly want to spend and build instead of making what we already have existing more accessible and more affordable. So, gosh, what the hell are we even on? Is it 6? Okay. So you propose to increase fees, presumably so you can continue your wasteful spending habits. Excessive contingency fees, equity giveaways, you want to raise fees by an average of 4.5 to 10% beyond inflationary, and eliminate the Homeowner Relief Act program, which provides loans grants to eligible homeowners for minor home health and safety repairs. That is so sad, but it's okay because we already understand why this is all happening in the UN Agenda 21. Okay, and then you have the nerve to say these increases in PDS and DPW may not fully address cost increases based on future negotiated labor agreements, which is basically guaranteeing future financial mayhem for us because you cannot negotiate in the interest of all the people of this county. In other words, more shoddy and dangerous homes, yep, increasing wildfire dangers to all, and financial pressure. And then you threaten to withhold services you're already planning to cut. Get a grip. Amen, Pablo. I suggest that the first thing is to share the pain and cut your salaries a bit. I agree, Pablo. And maybe reduce the number of managers at the county a bit. Yeah. Also, I'd like an independent, or he'd like an independent audit first to verify that all the county's BS programs are not wasteful. But they are.
Thank you. Your time is up, and we will go to our next caller.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, if you guys weren't engaged in fraud, waste, and abuse, it's just funny because you'll always make sure that you get your labor costs in there, and then, you always have nothing left for the services that you want to provide. So then you come down the pipe to the people to make them do it, even though, like, you're sitting here and removing programs, which is ridiculous. And it's funny because you want to, like, get on Trump about the tariffs and all of these things. You're doing the exact same stuff to your people, and you're, like, bitching about it on the other end of it, that we shouldn't even need permits to do work on our home. But that's the thing, is that, you're always, charging people more and more money while you guys get paid. Like, so we should be taking that and do salary reductions. I mean, it's funny because you act like having more permitting fees and increasing all of this stuff is going to enhance housing availability. What? And also health and safety sustainability. It's like the language that you guys use to just like pull wool over people's eyes is ridiculous. Because if you're increasing everything, how's that going to enhance the availability? Especially if, like, you're increasing that for people to do work on their own homes, so then they're not even going to be able to do it. You're literally, like, everything pushes us backwards. We're never moving forward on and you just want to incentivize different things to encourage people to do this or to do that, push people into your United Nations agenda. But you should really think about, not increasing labor all the time when you're leaving all of the programs that you're supposed to. Actually, maybe that's good, because then you can't, engage in more fraud, waste, and abuse. But people are going to pay these fees. But if you're always changing the goalpost of what needs to happen, that actually severely impedes your ability to provide housing or any kind of development. So, you guys really need to just quit lying to people. It's crazy. Like, it's nuts. I mean, if people see that, that's why they don't come in. They'll come in.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay. Do any of my colleagues have any thoughts or questions on item 6? Okay, please, Supervisor Desmond.
I appreciate the time. I know we're under the gun here, but I appreciate the presentation, but unfortunately here we are, in raising fees on housing. And I would like to see, hopefully between now, I mean, today we're just setting a hearing for the next time, but for the letter from the BIA, they're talking about more self-certification. I thought we had some of that in place. Do we or do we not? Are they looking at amplifying that?
Through the Vice Chair, Supervisor, yes, we do have a self-certification program that was created back in 2020 for about a half dozen building permit types. And we have reached out to the Building Industry Association, North County Engineers, offering a meeting to talk about additional self-certification options that they'd like to prioritize.
And then also the ministerial approvals. They're looking for expand the use of ministerial approvals for projects to comply with existing zoning and development standards. Is that potentially something we could offer as well?
Through the Vice Chair, Supervisor, yes, we'll be meeting with them to talk about self-certification and then options on converting discretionary to ministerial, and then we'll keep the board staff apprised as we have these discussions.
Well, and I get it, having to raise fees, and your costs are going up, everybody's costs are going up, but I just hate doing it to housing. It'd be nice, I guess, on the May 21st, if you've got something. If we're inflicting pain on one hand, if we can increase the service and the uncertainty, the cost, whatever it is we can do, there's ways we can improve our processes to the benefit of home builders instead of hand in hand with raising fees, so it looks like there's some benefit to it. I'd like to see that at the May 21st hearing. And I know that's not a lot of time between now and then, but it looks like you're already in communication. So hopefully you can bring something that would ease the pain. Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor, if I may, through the vice chair, we will highlight some of the work we've been doing with the building industry in the past year. We've saved over $2 million with some of those innovations, and we will also have an opportunity to meet with those groups prior to the 21st and get a little more feedback from them about what they may want to see, as Vince indicated, and at least share what we will be working on to that effect with them.
Well, it's helpful to make that part of, I don't know if that's going to be done by May 21st, but no? Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be voting for the fee increases unless I can see the benefits coming too, though.
We will identify for you what we have done in the past year and what we continue to do in terms of continuous improvements to get that benefit you're talking about, and then what we can work on. I don't think it's realistic for us to complete additional changes aside from to highlight what we've done and do each year in the next 2 weeks. So we'll work on that and see what we can get for you, Supervisor.
Well, I guess I would request next time you come with fee increases, have that other stuff in hand.
Supervisor, we do have and can highlight some of those innovations. If you would like to speak about those today, I know we have a time limitation, but we can certainly, I could turn it to Vince if you want to highlight.
Bring it on the 20th.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Any other comments?
I'll move
Okay.
the item.
Go ahead.
We need a motion for this, right, to set the hearing? I will do that.
We have a motion by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, a second by Supervisor Anderson. Please vote.
And Vice Chair Lawson, remember that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
Okay, thank you very much. We will reconvene at 1 o'clock.
Board is in recess until 1 p.m.